Child welfare questions. My name is Carolyn Hill. I had a case with DHS where they unjustly took two of my nieces. Since then, I've been volunteering at the Crossroads Women's Center, taking calls from family of those whose children have been taken from them. Social worker often comes with police in the night, tearing away children from family because they are poor. To tell the truth, child welfare, foster care is a prison for children. Young children feel like they are being kidnapped. Just as you said in your campaign, too many peoples are coming against criminal and justice system for no good reasons. There is a lot of money being spent taking children that instead can go to help mothers. My questions are, what can you do to avoid prison sentence for mothers, primary caregivers so that the children aren't punished? And if mothers are locked up, how can you help families keep in touch and stop fast-track adoptions? Mothers don't stop caring about our kids, trying to help raise them because we are in prison. 2, would you support open family courts so that the public is not in the dark but what goes on in them? What can you do to make sure mothers get decent legal representations? 3, and finally, victims of domestic violence often lose custody of their children. What can you do to stop that?
So that's a bunch of great questions. Let me try to touch on a few of them at least. So I remember this case pretty well. It was a case where a woman who was actually fully employed was at Fairmount Park. The car was parked near the water. The child went to the car and managed to turn on the car, was playing in the car, hit the gas, and drove the car into the water, where the child went underwater and suffered brain injury from lack of oxygen. All right? The district attorney's office thought the best thing they could do was to charge the mother, who was not intoxicated and was not aware of what the child did, with the felony offense of endangering the welfare of the child, and then trying to put her in jail for as long as possible. She was the only source of health care benefits for the child, who now had brain injury and required that level of assistance. And this DA's office pushed that case and pushed that case and pushed that case because it was so important. Not only that in this tragedy the child suffered what she suffered, but it was so important to make sure that any form of financial support or health care support for that child was destroyed. That is ridiculous. That is prosecuting for the papers. And I'm not here to say that that mother was necessarily perfect. I'm not here to say that. But there has to be some level of common sense about what you're doing. You do not want to make things 10 times worse than they already are just by being rigid and pushing ahead in cases where a parent has not intentionally done any harm to a child or where a parent is facing other challenges. So it really starts fundamentally with judgment and discretion. It starts with having a prosecutor's office that looks at the big picture and tries not to crush people and tries not to break up families when it's unnecessary to do that. That's not to say it's never going to happen. I mean, the reality is that there are some occasions where families get broken up. But it is to say that you need to have a prosecutor who, before he or she puts somebody in jail, bears in mind the consequences to the family, just like the consequences to the victim, just like the consequences to the defendant, just like the consequences to society, and looks at the big picture and evaluates all that before letting that happen. I guess that answers part of your question, and I certainly would favor that whole discussion happening before any decision is made about what charges to bring or what kind of a resolution to offer for cases where parents are charged.
How about family court?
Thank you.
So your question goes to family court. Under state law, juvenile prosecutions and also various things like protection from abuse hearings are to be held without allowing the public in. A lot of that was done to try to protect the reputation of the kid and to make it so it was not widely known that the kid was charged with an offense. It's part of a much larger idea that the juvenile justice system is supposed to exist to assist children, not to mark them, and that's why any criminal records are sealed from the public. They're not available to schools, they're not available to employers. So I think in that sense it's a good thing, because I don't think it's a good thing for people to widely find out what it is a juvenile is accused of doing. I think it makes it more difficult to rehabilitate them. But at the same time, there are some bad things that go with that. One of the bad things that goes with it is they don't give kids jury trials.
But I'm thinking like for his family members, they don't let the family in when you go to custody court.
Well, I have to tell you, honestly, I've not been involved in custody proceedings. That has not been my career. And so I don't have a strong opinion on it. I'd be very interested in hearing what others have to say about it. Thank you. And I have some reading now. So thank you.
Well, you do have some reading to do, and every question that was posed to you within the last, from Patricia Vickers on to our last guest speaker, we'll give you a
Great,
package
thank you.
on the questions that they introduced.